Welcome, sleepless travelers, to another journey under the quiet stars, with night without rest. Tonight, we explore a story that has fascinated the world for centuries. The story of a nation that began as a cluster of small colonies along the eastern coast of a vast continent and grew into a global power known for its ideals, innovation, and influence. This is the tale of America's rise and the trials that accompanied its growth, a story of courage, ambition, and the dreams of countless people who shaped its history. In the early 1600s, settlers arrived on unfamiliar shores, facing harsh winters, dense forests, and unknown challenges that would test their endurance and spirit. These early colonies were small, fragile communities, yet they began to thrive through agriculture, trade, and collaboration. Life was difficult, but the promise of freedom and opportunity fueled the hearts of those who dared to dream. Over time, tensions grew with the ruling British Crown, as taxation without representation and restrictive laws sparked the first murmurs of rebellion. The Boston Tea Party became a symbol of resistance, and the idea of liberty began to spread like wildfire through the towns, ports, and countryside. Thoughtful leaders and visionaries emerged, inspiring others to believe that independence was not only possible, but necessary for the future of their children and generations to come. By 1775, these ideas could no longer remain silent. Armed conflict erupted as the colonies challenged one of the most powerful empires in the world. George Washington, chosen to lead the Continental Army, faced overwhelming odds, untrained soldiers, limited supplies, and a formidable British military. Yet, through determination, strategy, and unity, the colonies achieved early victories that built confidence and hope. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed, declaring that all people are endowed with unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This document became a guiding light not only for the new nation but for people around the world who dreamed of freedom and self-determination. The war raged on for years, and every victory came at great cost. Soldiers endured freezing winters, hunger, and relentless battle, while families at home waited anxiously for news of their loved ones. Courage, resilience, and sacrifice defined this period. Yet, the ideals of liberty and justice drove the revolution forward. And slowly, through persistence and strategy, the colonies triumphed, earning their independence and the right to govern themselves. The victory marked not just the success of a military campaign, but the birth of a new nation, founded on principles that would inspire countless generations. With independence secured, the challenge shifted to forming a government capable of guiding the young nation. The Articles of Confederation were tried, but soon revealed their weaknesses. Leaders convened to draft a constitution that balanced freedom with responsibility, protecting the rights of citizens while providing structure for governance. The Bill of Rights followed, ensuring freedoms that would become the bedrock of American society. While cities grew and commerce expanded, America looked to the West, seeking to explore and settle new territories. Pioneers and settlers moved into unknown lands, facing both opportunity and challenge. Native American tribes were impacted by these expansions, and the nation confronted moral and ethical questions that would echo through its history. Yet, the spirit of exploration, innovation, and unity propelled the country forward, defining the principles that would guide its growth. As the young nation expanded, it faced internal challenges that tested its values and unity. Political divisions, economic differences, and the institution of slavery created tensions that could no longer be ignored. Leaders emerged to navigate these crises, seeking to balance ambition with justice. Through dialogue, legislation, and at times, struggle, the nation began to shape its identity. Cities flourished, trade routes expanded, and communication networks connected distant regions, fostering a sense of unity despite the vastness of the land. With each step, America learned, evolved, and forged a path toward becoming a global presence, demonstrating that growth and perseverance are inseparable companions in the story of any great nation. Tonight, as you listen, imagine the people who lived these moments, the settlers, soldiers, thinkers, and dreamers who faced uncertainty with courage and conviction. Their stories form the foundation of a narrative that continues to influence the world. Every choice, every battle, every decision created ripples that shape society, culture, and governance for centuries. By understanding these events, we gain insight into the resilience, creativity, and determination that define the journey of a nation. So, as you sit back under the quiet night sky, let this story guide your imagination, illuminate the past, and remind you that history is not just a record of events, but a living, breathing chronicle of human endeavor and aspiration. And if you find yourself captivated by these journeys through time, make sure to subscribe to Night Without Rest, your companion in the quiet hours, where stories unfold and history whispers its lessons to those who pause, listen, and reflect. Tonight's tale is just the beginning, a window into the rise, trials, and enduring legacy of a nation that continues to shape the world in ways both profound and lasting. As the young nation settled into independence, the challenges of governance became apparent. The Articles of Confederation, though a first attempt at uniting the states, revealed the need for a stronger framework to guide the country's growth. Leaders and thinkers convened at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, engaging in debates that would determine the foundation of the United States. Ideas clashed, compromises were forged, and through careful deliberation, the Constitution was drafted to balance power, protect freedoms, and provide structure. The Bill of Rights soon followed, ensuring that the voices of citizens would be safeguarded against potential misuse of authority. While government formation was underway, America's population continued to expand, moving westward into territories filled with promise and challenge. Pioneers traveled across rivers, mountains, and plains, seeking fertile land and opportunity. Each settlement reflected the determination and resilience of ordinary people striving for a better future. At the same time, interactions with Native American tribes became complex and often tragic, as differing cultures and competing claims to land led to conflict. These moments remind us that growth and progress often carry moral and ethical complexities that demand reflection. Cities began to flourish. Commerce expanded through trade, markets, and early industry. Roads, canals, and later railroads connected distant communities, fostering communication and collaboration. As the nation grew, ideas about democracy, representation, and civic responsibility spread, influencing daily life and shaping the identity of a new generation of Americans. Schools, libraries, and institutions emerged, reflecting a desire not only for economic growth, but for cultural and intellectual development. Amidst these changes, the question of liberty remained central. Slavery continued to divide the nation, with some regions embracing its economic benefits while others challenged it as a moral injustice. The tension between freedom and oppression became increasingly impossible to ignore. Citizens, writers, and political leaders debated, protested, and advocated for change, planting the seeds of a future conflict that would test the very foundations of the Republic. Meanwhile, innovation and exploration were transforming daily life. New technologies, farming techniques, and transportation methods allowed communities to thrive. Markets grew, cities expanded, and the promise of opportunity drew people from across the world to American shores. The nation was learning, evolving, and defining itself in the delicate balance between ambition and ethics. Every decision, every policy, and every challenge contributed to a tapestry of experiences that would shape the identity of America for generations to come. As night falls and the quiet hours envelop the land, imagine the people of this era, leaders deliberating over the Constitution, pioneers forging trails through untamed wilderness, families building homes and lives from the ground up. Each moment was filled with hope, fear, courage, and resilience. History is not just dates and events. It is the human experience, unfolding in countless acts of determination, innovation, and vision. By understanding these stories, we connect not only with the past, but with the lessons that guide the present and illuminate the path forward. So, as you continue this journey through time with Night Without Rest, let these stories settle into your imagination, allowing the whispers of history to guide your thoughts. And remember, if you enjoy traveling through these quiet hours of reflection and learning, subscribe to Night Without Rest and stay with us as we uncover the hidden tales of our shared past. One story at a time. The journey has only just begun, and the chapters ahead will reveal courage, triumph, and lessons that echo across centuries. When Abraham Lincoln took the oath as the 16th President of the United States in 1861, the air of the nation was heavy. The clouds of division were dark, and the dream of one united country seemed to tremble in the storm of hatred and fear. Lincoln stood not as a warrior, not as a king, but as a humble man with a heavy heart, a man chosen by history to heal a wounded land. He walked into the White House with barely any celebration. The Southern states were leaving the Union one after another. The Civil War was no longer a whisper. It had begun to roar. The world watched as America, a young nation of hope and promise, began to tear itself apart. And yet, Lincoln never lost faith. He believed that freedom was not a word written only on paper, but a promise written in the heart of every human being. He spent sleepless nights by candlelight, reading letters from soldiers and mothers, studying maps, and searching for a way to bring peace without losing justice. In those dark hours, he often said to his friends, "If I do my full duty and do right, the Lord will take care of the rest." He carried not just the burden of a war, but the pain of every family divided by it. As the war raged on, thousands of lives were lost. The White House turned into a place of mourning. Yet Lincoln continued to visit soldiers, shaking hands, offering kind words, reminding them why they fought not for power, but for a future where all men could be free. In 1863, he wrote one of the most powerful documents in history, the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that every enslaved person in the Confederate States shall be free. Those words were not just ink on a page. They were the breath of a new dawn. When he read the final draft, his hand trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of history. He said quietly, "If my name ever goes into history, it will be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." The road ahead was still long. The war continued, but Lincoln's words gave strength to millions. His calm face, his steady voice, and his deep belief that love was stronger than hate made him not just a leader, but a symbol of hope. And on silent nights, when the war drums paused for a moment, soldiers whispered his name by the campfires. They spoke of him, not as a distant ruler, but as a man who understood them, a man who carried the pain of a nation in his eyes. The year 1863, America had been bleeding for 2 long years. Cities had burned, brothers had fallen, and the sound of war echoed through the land. Yet in the small town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, something sacred was about to happen, a moment that would remind the world what this nation truly stood for. On a quiet November morning, Abraham Lincoln stepped forward to speak. He wore his familiar black coat, his eyes tired but gentle. The crowd had come not to hear a long speech, but to feel hope again. Lincoln's words lasted barely 2 minutes, but those words would live forever. He began softly, "407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal." Each word carried the weight of history. He did not speak about victory or revenge. He spoke about purpose, that the dead shall not have died in vain, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. As he finished, the crowd was silent. No applause, no cheers, just quiet tears. Because sometimes, silence speaks louder than any sound. After Gettysburg, Lincoln's face looked older. but his heart remained unbroken. He spent nights alone in his study, writing letters to grieving mothers, comforting generals, and reading poetry to calm his mind. Outside, the war thundered on, but inside, he fought a different battle. The battle to keep his own spirit alive. He carried a small Bible wherever he went. He once said, "I have been driven many times to my knees by the overwhelming conviction that I had nowhere else to go." Those were not just words of faith. They were words of endurance. By 1864, the tide of war began to turn. Lincoln saw that freedom, though born in pain, was now within reach. The Union armies pushed forward. Slavery was dying with every mile they gained. Still, he never spoke with pride, only with humility, saying, "Let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds." Every decision weighed on him. He aged faster than his years, yet his eyes still held compassion. When generals quarreled, he listened. When the people doubted, he smiled. And when darkness seemed endless, he whispered, "The night is long, but the dawn will come." As 1865 approached, Lincoln could finally see the end of the storm. The Union stood tall again. Freedom was no longer a dream. It was a promise kept. But history, as it often does, had one final test for him, a test that would turn his story into legend. The year was 1865. The Civil War was nearing its end. The Union stood strong again, but the cost had been immense. Abraham Lincoln, weary from years of decision-making, still carried the weight of a nation on his shoulders. Every letter he read, every report he received reminded him of the lives lost and families broken. Yet, in his eyes, there was a quiet hope. He believed that America, though tested by fire, could emerge stronger, united, and free. He walked the halls of the White House with a steady gait, greeting aides and citizens alike, his calm demeanor inspiring confidence in all who met him. Even in these final days, Lincoln continued to write letters of encouragement, to console the bereaved, and to remind the people of the promise of freedom. He once said, "I am a firm believer in the people. If given the truth, they can be depended upon to meet any national crisis. The great point is to bring them the real facts." In April of 1865, the nation celebrated peace. The Union was preserved, and slavery was abolished. Lincoln's leadership had shaped history not through force alone, but through wisdom, patience, and unwavering morality. Yet history had one last test for him. On a spring evening, in a quiet theater, his life was tragically taken. The world mourned, but his ideas, his words, and his spirit lived on. Across battlefields, towns, and homes, people remembered the man who had carried the nation through its darkest hours. Even today, Abraham Lincoln's story reminds us that courage, compassion, and perseverance can shape a nation, that even in the long night of struggle, hope remains, and that the actions of one humble, determined person can echo through centuries, inspiring generations yet to come. This is the story of Abraham Lincoln, not just a president, but a symbol of unity, hope, and the enduring human spirit. In 1862, the United States was engulfed in the turmoil of the Civil War, a conflict that threatened to tear the nation apart. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, faced decisions that would define his legacy and the very soul of America. One of the most pivotal moments of his presidency was the Emancipation Proclamation. But it wasn't just a document. It was a statement of principle, a moral declaration that sought to redefine the meaning of freedom. Lincoln understood the weight of every word he wrote. The proclamation would not only alter the course of the war, but also send a powerful message to the world. As he drafted it, he considered not only the legal and political ramifications, but also the human lives that hung in the balance. He knew that freedom for enslaved people was not just an abstract ideal, it was a necessity for justice and equality, a vision he carried deeply in his heart. Even as he worked tirelessly, Lincoln sought counsel from his advisors, balancing their opinions with his own moral compass. He understood the complexity of the moment. Freeing enslaved people in the Confederate States might be seen as a bold and controversial move, but Lincoln knew that courage was required to uphold the principles upon which the nation was founded. He carefully timed the proclamation, ensuring it would have the maximum impact on both the battlefield and the broader political landscape. The proclamation itself symbolized more than just legal change. It was a beacon of hope. Enslaved individuals who heard of it found a promise of freedom, while soldiers and citizens alike saw renewed purpose in the struggle. Lincoln's empathy extended beyond policy. He read letters from people affected by the war, understanding their fears, their hopes, and their dreams. These reflections informed his decisions, reinforcing his commitment to both justice and humanity. Public reactions were varied. Some celebrated the boldness of Lincoln's decision, recognizing it as a moral triumph, while others questioned the timing and potential consequences. Yet Lincoln remained steadfast, believing that history would judge him, not merely by strategy, but by his unwavering commitment to what was right. He understood that leadership required both wisdom and courage, especially in times of great uncertainty. As the proclamation took effect, its significance reverberated across the nation. It reshaped the narrative of the Civil War, infusing it with a moral imperative that went beyond battles and strategies. Lincoln's careful, deliberate actions ensured that the proclamation was not only a political statement, but a testament to the enduring values of freedom and equality. Reflecting on this moment, we see Lincoln not just as a leader, but as a deeply thoughtful human being. His ability to weigh consequences, show compassion, and maintain moral clarity in the face of immense pressure serves as a lesson in leadership, resilience, and vision. The Emancipation Proclamation reminds us that true courage often lies in making decisions guided by principle, even when faced with uncertainty. This story, like all we share on Night Without Rest, is meant for reflection and knowledge. It is not personal commentary, but a window into history, inviting listeners to understand the choices and humanity of one of America's most influential leaders. Abraham Lincoln was not only a leader of extraordinary vision, but also a man deeply attuned to the lives and emotions of those around him. During the Civil War, the pressures on his shoulders were immense. Every decision he made affected millions of lives, from soldiers on the battlefield to families torn apart by conflict. Yet, despite the weight of command, Lincoln displayed a remarkable empathy that distinguished him from many other leaders of his time. One of the ways Lincoln expressed his humanity was through his correspondence. He wrote countless letters to grieving families, offering comfort and understanding to those who had lost loved ones. These letters were never mere formalities. They were thoughtful, personal messages that reflected his genuine concern for others. Soldiers who received his words often felt a renewed sense of purpose, realizing that the president recognized their sacrifices and valued their struggles. Lincoln also paid attention to the smaller details of daily life within the White House and among his advisors. He listened attentively during meetings, considered opposing viewpoints, and sought compromise when possible. Yet he never lost sight of the moral principles that guided him. He understood that leadership was not solely about authority or strategy. It was about balancing power with compassion and policy with conscience. His empathy extended beyond Americans directly affected by the war. Lincoln was acutely aware of how his decisions would be perceived internationally, understanding that the world watched the United States with curiosity, and expectation. In crafting speeches or public messages, he carefully chose words that conveyed both strength and integrity. Each statement was deliberate, meant to inspire hope, maintain unity, and affirm the moral direction of the nation. Even in moments of personal struggle, Lincoln remained reflective. He often walked alone, contemplating the future of the country, the fate of enslaved people, and the long-term consequences of his decisions. These private moments allowed him to process the immense responsibility he bore and reinforced his ability to lead with clarity and calm under pressure. Lincoln's humor, too, was a tool of connection. Despite the gravity of his position, he often lightened tense situations with wit or storytelling. This ability to humanize himself made him approachable to colleagues, soldiers, and citizens alike. It reminded those around him that even in times of turmoil, the human spirit marked by kindness, humor, and empathy remained a vital force. The American Civil War tested Abraham Lincoln in ways few leaders have ever faced. With the nation divided and thousands of lives at stake, Lincoln's decisions were pivotal, not only for the outcome of the conflict but for the future of the United States. In this segment, we reflect on how Lincoln's leadership during wartime became a defining part of his enduring legacy. One of the most powerful ways Lincoln shaped history was through his speeches. His words were more than communication. They were a source of guidance, hope, and moral clarity. Consider the Gettysburg Address, delivered in 1863, a brief yet profound message that reminded Americans of the values upon which their nation was founded. Lincoln emphasized unity, equality, and the importance of a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Even in its short duration, the speech resonated deeply, inspiring soldiers and citizens alike to persevere through immense suffering. Lincoln's leadership extended beyond public addresses. He personally reviewed military strategies, corresponded with generals, and monitored the progress of the war with a meticulous eye. Yet, he balanced strategy with empathy, understanding the human cost of each campaign. Soldiers' letters, accounts of battles, and stories from civilians informed his decisions, allowing him to govern with both intellect and compassion. His moral courage was also evident in the decisions that were not always popular. Lincoln understood that leadership often required choosing the right path over the easy path. The Emancipation Proclamation, for example, was controversial, yet he pursued it because it aligned with his belief in justice and human dignity. In times of doubt or criticism, he maintained a calm resolve, trusting that history would remember actions rooted in principle rather than convenience. During the war, Lincoln also emphasized national unity. He worked tirelessly to prevent further division within his own administration and the broader political landscape. His careful communication, negotiation, and willingness to listen to diverse viewpoints helped maintain cohesion among leaders and citizens alike. By combining moral clarity with practical leadership, Lincoln guided the nation through its darkest hours. Perhaps one of Lincoln's most remarkable traits was his ability to remain reflective even amidst chaos. He frequently pondered the long-term consequences of his decisions, imagining the impact on future generations. These reflections shaped not only his policies, but also his speeches, letters, and personal conduct. They were a reminder that true leadership is as much about foresight and ethics as it is about immediate action. As we reach the final chapter of Abraham Lincoln's story, it's time to reflect on the profound impact of his life and leadership. Lincoln's presidency was defined not just by the battles he faced, but by the moral clarity and empathy with which he governed. In a time when the nation seemed on the verge of collapse, he remained steadfast, balancing strategy with conscience and politics with principle. His words, like those in the Gettysburg Address, continue to resonate, reminding us that leadership is measured by the courage to act with integrity and the ability to inspire unity. Lincoln's vision for America, a nation of freedom, equality, and justice, was not just political rhetoric. It was a reflection of his deeply held beliefs and understanding of human dignity. Beyond politics, Lincoln's personal humanity shines through. He reached out to grieving families, listened to his advisors, and considered the emotional toll of war on soldiers and citizens alike. These acts of compassion, often subtle and behind the scenes, revealed a leader who understood that true power lies not just in decisions, but in understanding the people those decisions affect. As the Civil War ended and the nation began to heal, Lincoln's legacy became a guiding light for future generations. His life teaches us that courage, empathy, and moral vision are inseparable from effective leadership. Even today, his example inspires leaders, thinkers, and ordinary citizens to act with integrity and compassion. This story, like all shared on Night Without Rest, is meant for knowledge and reflection. It is not intended as commentary on anyone alive today, but as a historical exploration of choices, humanity, and the enduring lessons left by one of America's greatest leaders. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Lincoln's life, make sure to subscribe to Night Without Rest for more historical storytelling. Share this story with friends and family, and continue exploring the past with us. Your support helps keep history alive, one story at a time.